What's up, everybody? My name is Bryan Garra, and I am a real estate agent with eXp Realty. In over 6 years in real estate and 350 transactions, there's still one question that stands out the most amongst others. And guess what it is? Bryan, how do you buy a house? Today, that is exactly what we're going to be going over. And hopefully you can walk away with this having a better idea of what you need to do in order to get yourself into a home. Give me a second here as I work on sharing my screen with you. And there we go. So this is what I like to call your guide to home. It's just a quick little guide that I like to present to new people who have never bought a house before, don't know much about real estate, and really just want to get an overall idea of how everything works. So first, a little bit about me. Like I mentioned, I've been in the industry for 6 years. I've sold over 350 homes, and I actually invest myself into real estate and coach people how to invest in real estate. So this is a huge passion of mine. I'm never going to get tired of this. So in my team, it's not only just me, but my father, Jeff, is also a licensed real estate agent. So you might get to work with one of us or both of us during a transaction. So this right here is the home buyer's roadmap. These are the points that we're going to be going over today, from finding an agent, getting financials, all the way to moving in and closing. So I'm not going to spend too much time here because I know we're going to be going over everything. So let's go ahead and move forward. So I want you to go ahead and pause your screen for a moment and take a moment to read through these terms. The one that I most commonly get asked about is number one, earnest money, and number two, appraisal. So I'm just going to touch very quickly on those and then we'll move forward. So earnest money is also known as good faith money. And this is put up when you get your offer accepted by the seller. So a good example of this is, say we get a $100,000 offer accepted on a property. Well, in that contract, it would actually be stated that there is a $500 earnest money that's due when the seller accepts the offer. Now, that money is deposited with what's called a title company, and that money will actually go towards your down payment if we make it to closing. Now, if for some reason we don't make it to closing and you need to walk away, you still get this money back, but only in certain scenarios. So make sure you ask your real estate agent before walking away, or you risk losing this money. And then, of course, I said the second one that I get most commonly asked about is appraisal. Now, the appraisal is kind of like a home inspection, but not at all. So your home inspection that you do is paid for by you. It's to find out things wrong with the house. And the appraisal is actually conducted by the bank. And the point of an appraisal is to make sure that the house is worth what the bank is lending you for it. Now, they're also going to make sure that the house is in certain standards of condition, so you're not getting a lemon or anything. But they by no means are going to go into any detail like what the home inspector does. They are more so looking for the value of the home. I'm a big history buff, so I had to throw in a quote in here. Real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care, it is about the safest investment in the world. And that was Franklin D. Roosevelt who said that. I could not agree anymore. So, all right, these are the same 10 steps that I mentioned before. I'm going to be numbering each page as we go, but we'll be starting with step number one, and that is finding a great agent to work with. Now, not many people know this, but actually when you are buying a house, working with a real estate agent does not cost you anything. You do not pay our commissions. The seller actually pays us for bringing you as a buyer and buying their house. So I want to get that right off the page before we get into anything else. But I think these are a few good points that kind of touch base on what a realtor does for you. Number one, they're your expert guide. They hopefully live or work in the area, so they have an idea of the school systems, the restaurants, the locale as a whole. They're going to have knowledge of specific neighborhoods, HOAs, rules, all kinds of stuff like that. But what I really think is important when you're working with a realtor is the attention to detail. When you're walking through a property, you want an agent who's going to help point out things that maybe you didn't see. Or someone, when they're writing a contract, they're going to have those few little tips and tricks that are going to get you just a little bit better of a deal. And of course, you want your agent to be able to negotiate. This is what we get paid to do, is to get you a good deal. So make sure the person that you're buying your house with has some solid sales skills. And then last but not least, I think obviously the most important part is connecting you with the right home. When I meet with a buyer, we're going to go over your needs and find out exactly what you want and absolutely need in a new home. And once we've gone over those needs, I'll actually set up an automatic listing alert where I send all of the properties listed on the market that fit your criteria directly to you. No more checking out Zillow, Realtor.com. are running around trying to get the hottest new listing. All right, so now let's talk financials. So there are a lot of misconceptions that I find around the finances of how to actually afford a house, and we're going to be diving into those a little bit today. Now, when you are going to get a house, obviously you can pay in cash, but most people are going to use what's called a mortgage. And in order to get a mortgage, first we're going to need to go to a loan officer and get what's called a pre-approval letter. And to get a pre-approval letter, there are a couple of things that need to occur. First, they're going to run your credit just to obviously make sure that you've got some history there, and then we're not too leveraged out to be able to buy a home. They're also going to be taking a look at what's called your debt to income ratio, which is the ratio of income you have compared to your debt on a monthly basis. And the typical documents you'll need when you're talking with your lender is your last 2 years of tax returns, your pay stub, and 2 months of bank statements. Now, once we get the house and you have a payment to make, that is called your mortgage. And a lot of people ask, well, Bryan, do I pay taxes on top of my mortgage? How do I pay my insurance? Your mortgage can actually include everything. In today's day and age, this is what most people opt to do. And your mortgage is actually going to include these 4 things. And I like to use the acronym PITI. Principal balance, that's the balance you owe on the house. That's the loan you borrowed. The interest, obviously the interest on the loan, your taxes, and your insurance. So you're going to make a singular payment to your bank, and they're going to make the rest of those payments for you. Now, not all loan types are created the same. There are a few different options that today's consumers have to work with. The first of them is going to be the easiest to get, and that's going to be an FHA loan. This is a 3.5% down loan that they really have the strictest appraisal standards, but they have the lowest standards in terms of being able to qualify and get into it. So if this is your first time buying a home and you don't want to put a lot of money down, or you don't think you can qualify, this is probably going to be the loan for you. The second loan option we have, and this is the one that people typically think you need 20% down for, it's called a conventional loan. And that 20% down myth couldn't be any more than just that, a myth. You can get your house with a conventional loan for as little as 5% down, and you're actually going to get more favorable interest rates for using a conventional loan. And then the third and most common type of loan that I see used in our area is what's called a VA loan. And if you're a veteran, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This VA loan is for qualifying veterans. It's 0% down, minimal closing costs, and no mortgage insurance on your monthly payment. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to go through a very simplified version of the cost of buying a home. And what I've done is I've divvied it up into upfront fees, expected closing costs, and then we're going to combine them all down here at the bottom. So let's work with a sales price of, let's say, $125. So these upfront fees, these costs paid before the time of closing, are as follows. We'll have your earnest money that's paid when you get under contract, and again, that'll go towards your down payment. We also need to pay for that appraisal and your home inspection. So before we even get to the closing table, you'll need at least this amount in your pocket. Now, again, there are other costs to be paid at the time of closing. So while you do not pay our real estate agent a commission, some real estate companies like my own may charge you a small transaction fee to maintain all of your documents for the years to come, and also to pay their administrative staff. So in this case, that's $495. Your title and escrow fees. Now, these are going to be the fees that you're paying to make sure that when that house gets transferred to you, there's no back taxes, water bills, that the seller was actually legally able to transfer it to you. So that is a very important piece. And you're actually paying half of it. The seller will pay the other half. But this is your total of that half. You're also going to be paying some lender fees. Everyone costs money to use, and that includes your lender. And then last but not least, you'll have about a year's worth of homeowner's insurance that you'll need to pay in advance. So, your expected closing costs alone are going to be at least $4,000. So here at the bottom, what we're going to do, if I can get back to that page, is we're going to add them up. So we've got our upfront fees, our closing costs, and our down payment. Now, I assumed that down payment was 3.5%. So that's the number that we're working with there. Now, after we subtract our earnest money, again, we don't want to add that twice. Your total cost for buying a $125,000 house is about $9,100. Now, some people come to me and say, well, Bryan, I don't have $9,100, so I can't buy a house. And I'll say, hold the brakes. We might be able to make something work for you. So what we can do when purchasing on a home is we can actually ask the seller to pay these closing costs. So potentially you can just come to the table with these upfront fees and your down payment. So there's always room for negotiation. Make sure to talk to your realtor about the specifics of your financials so we can talk to you about this as well. So once we've got your pre-approval, we've talked about your numbers, we've talked about the houses that you want. The next step is obviously going and finding that home. Now, once your real estate agent has sent you an initial list of properties, they should automatically keep coming every day as new properties hit the market that fit your criteria. Now, since you've already had a conversation about your wants and your needs, it's going to be your real estate agent's job to kind of hold you accountable to those wants and needs and make sure we're not going too far off into the weeds. So I've got a few home searching tips here, like taking videos, taking pictures, and definitely taking notes. If you're looking at more than 5 houses in a day with your realtor, you're probably going to get burnt out. You want to make sure that you're taking notes of those houses. Now, like I mentioned, as a realtor, I'm always going to be pointing out the negative things. It's your job to see the positive things that you like. So let's say we go through a number of houses and we come across the one. Bryan, this is it. You've got to offer on this house. We can't lose. Well, awesome. That's a great first step. We're going to want to talk about the terms of the offer. We're going to want to talk about how long of a closing do we want to have? Are we going to ask them to pay closing costs? What inspections do we want? Do we want them to pay a home warranty? There are all kinds of questions that your real estate agent should be walking you through so that way you can formulate the most competitive offer that serves your needs the most. Now, not often will you get your initial offer accepted unless it is absolutely stellar. So it's more common than not, that you'll be negotiating with a seller. So what happens in a negotiation is you present your initial offer and the listing agent might come back to you and say, hey, we really appreciate the offer, but we would like to make X, Y, Z changes. And the buyer's agent and the seller's agent will kind of go back and forth until hopefully we're able to come to a mutual agreement. Now, once we've got the contract accepted, we've got through our negotiations, all the paperwork signed, we are now what's called officially under contract. So all the balls get rolling now. We've got to submit that earnest money inspection, get the loan rolling, and then, of course, get your home inspection scheduled. So it's always a good idea to add a home inspection contingency. Obviously, it protects your butt, and here is why that is. So when we get our home inspection, you have a couple of options to proceed forward after getting that home inspection completed. You can, number one, proceed forward if everything looks good to you. Hey, Bryan, everything looks good. Let's move forward. Number two, oh my gosh, Bryan, it needs a new furnace. The roof stinks. It needs a new air conditioner too. We want out. All right, you're allowed to do that. So you can walk forward, walk away, or the third option is negotiate. So let's again say that we do our inspection and find that the house needs a new furnace. Well, we might want to negotiate the purchase price down, ask the seller to fix that, or maybe get some additional closing cost credits to offset the cost. Everything is negotiable after an inspection, but it's very important not to nitpick at risk of losing the seller's interest in you as a buyer. So, all right, let's assume that we made it past the inspection phase. The next step is actually going to be the appraisal. Now, the bank's not going to send someone out here or let you pay for this until they know that you are satisfied with the home inspection results. But once we do get the appraiser out there, they're going to just make sure that the house is worth exactly, if not more, than what you agreed to pay for the property. And if that loan appraisal goes through, well, then we're going to be going to the next step, which is loan approval. And loan approval means that they've checked your pay stubs, they've double-checked your tax returns, they've done all of this stuff behind the scenes to make sure that you qualify for this loan. And once all that information does come in, they're going to give you 2 thumbs up and say that you've got loan approval. So once we've got that loan approval moment written out and scheduled, well, then we're probably going to want to start scheduling our move. It's time to call the movers. It's time to start getting stuff packed up if you haven't already. And it's going to be time to get to the closing table here soon. So closing is going to occur approximately 30 days after you go under contract. So the total time frame from start to finish is about 30 days, unless for some reason you or the seller needs more time. And what's going to happen at closing is you're going to meet at the title company, or they can come to you at work, they can come to you at your current house, they can meet you wherever to sign your paperwork, have you wire your down payment, and answer any questions you have about your mortgage. And once you do sign those paperwork, you'll typically get your keys that same day Or if you sign your paperwork afternoon, you'll probably get it the following day. But from start to finish, from getting pre-approved and finding an agent to scheduling your move and getting closed, that is the process of buying a home. If you do want to read any customer testimonials, I've got so many on Zillow, Google. I've got a couple here. Here's a couple of my client resources. The title companies and lenders and financial advisors that I really recommend working with are on here as well. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch me today and learn a little bit about what it takes to buy a home. I hope to see you in the near future as you look to move on.